The planet of Elira was silent that morning. The sky hung low and dull, painted in endless shades of gray. The fields stretched far into the horizon. No colors, no brightness, no life. Even the flowers looked like dust. Lyra walked barefoot across the cold ground, her small hands carrying a basket of pale roots. She was 16 seasons old, thin and quiet with eyes the color of storm clouds. Like everyone of her kind, she had never seen color. Her people, the Illyrians, did not even have a word for blue or red. They lived in a world where everything looked the same, empty and cold. But Lyra was different. She felt that something was missing. When others worked or slept, Lyra would sit alone on the cliffs, staring at the horizon where the gray sun met the gray sky. She imagined that somewhere beyond the stars there were worlds that looked alive, where rivers glowed and trees shined. Her heart ached for something she couldn't describe. One evening, as she returned home, she saw smoke rising beyond the hills, thick, black, and strange. No Illyrian fire ever burned like that. Curiosity took her feet before fear could stop her. She followed the trail through the quiet woods and over the cracked plains until she found the crash. A metal beast, broken, burning, half buried in the soil. She froze. Everyone knew the stories, humans, the monsters from the stars, the ones who destroyed skies and poisoned oceans. But as she crept closer, the wreck made no sound except for the faint hum of dying machines. And then, a voice, "Is someone there?" Lyra gasped and hid behind a rock. The voice was weak, soft, not monstrous at all. She peeked out and saw him, a human. He was lying beside the wreck, one leg trapped under twisted metal. His skin was strange, pale, not gray like hers. His clothes were torn and covered in soot. He looked hurt, his lips dry, his breathing slow. Lyra's hands shook. Every story said humans were dangerous, but this one looked broken, dying. Something deep inside her whispered, "Help him." She stepped closer, her feet crunching on the burnt soil. The human turned his head slightly. His eyes opened, and Lyra froze again. His eyes were different. They glowed faintly, alive with something she had never seen before. "What are you?" he whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "You are human, aren't you?" He tried to smile. "Yeah, name's Ethan. Ship went down. Guess I'm lucky you found me." Lucky? She didn't know that word, but his voice sounded kind. She gathered dry leaves and water from her satchel, cleaning the wound carefully. Ethan winced but didn't stop her. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Lyra looked at the lifeless sky. "I don't know, maybe because no one else would." Ethan laughed weakly. "That's a good reason." She helped him to a nearby barn at the edge of the forest, her secret place where she often hid her drawings of strange things she imagined. Skies with light, flowers that glowed. She hid him there, bringing food and water every day. As days passed, Ethan repaired small parts of his devices using scraps from the wreck. His tools sparked and blinked with lights, strange glowing colors that Lyra couldn't understand. One night as he worked, she asked shyly, "Why do your machines shine like that?" Ethan looked up. "That's color. You don't see it?" She tilted her head. "See what?" He paused, realizing, "You really don't. You can't see color at all, can you?" Lyra frowned. "Color, what is it?" Ethan thought for a moment, then held up a small metal shard from his ship. "This," he said, "is silver. To you, it's just gray. But in my world, there's green grass, blue sky, red fire, gold light. Every shade means something different. Color is feeling you can see." Lyra stared, lost. "Feeling you can see?" she repeated softly. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept whispering that word, a color. She looked at the dull stars and wondered what they might look like to human eyes. Over the next few days, Ethan grew stronger. He told her stories of Earth, oceans that glittered under sunlight, forests that sang with green, cities full of neon glow. Lyra listened as if hearing magic. Once she asked him, "If I can never see color, how will I know what it feels like?" Ethan smiled, though his eyes were sad. "Maybe I can show you one day." She laughed softly. "Show me, how?" He pointed at his broken device, a small lens-like machine. "If I can fix this, maybe I can make something for you. Glasses that help you see like humans do." Lyra's heart skipped. "See, like you?" "Yes," he said quietly. "I promise." Outside, thunder rolled over the horizon. The gray world stayed cold and silent, but inside that tiny barn, a spark had been born, the first small light of something greater. As Ethan slept, Lyra sat beside him looking at his strange face, the small rise and fall of his chest and the faint blue light from the machine near his hand. Blue? She couldn't see it, but she could feel it. For the first time in her life, Lyra's heart felt warm, as if color was already finding its way into her world. The next morning, pale mist covered the valley like a ghostly blanket. Lyra hurried to the barn, clutching a pouch of dried roots and a flask of spring water. Her heart beat fast, and she didn't know why she cared so much, but every step toward that broken barn felt like walking toward something important. Inside, Ethan sat near the wrecked metal panels, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted small wires and glass pieces. The faint hum of his human device echoed softly in the air, casting tiny flickers of light, invisible beauty that Lyra could only sense but not see. "You came early," he said with a tired smile. Lyra placed the food beside him. "You need strength. You can't fix things if you don't eat," he chuckled. "You sound like my sister back home." Lyra tilted her head. "Your sister? What is she like?" Ethan's eyes softened. "She loved painting. She said colors were like music for the eyes. Every time she looked at the sunset, she'd whisper, 'This is how love feels.'" Lyra smiled faintly. "Love has a color?" Ethan looked at her, really looked. "It does. You just can't see it yet." Days turned into weeks. Ethan recovered slowly and Lyra became his helper. She brought metal scraps from the ruins, wires from old farming tools, and lenses from broken devices. They worked together in silence most of the time, her hands steady, his guidance calm. One evening, as the dull sun dipped behind the clouds, Ethan held up a small curved frame. "This," he said softly, "will be the start of your glasses." Lyra's eyes widened. "You mean you can really make them?" "If the power core still works," Ethan replied, "then yes. You'll finally see color." Lyra didn't know why, but her throat tightened. The thought of seeing what he saw, the world as it truly was, made her heart race. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked. "I'm just a stranger. And my people? They would never help you." Ethan paused, looking at the broken door where moonlight leaked in. "Because you helped me when no one else did. Sometimes kindness doesn't need a reason." Lyra lowered her gaze. "Our elders say kindness is weakness." He smiled softly. "Then maybe it's time someone proved them wrong." One night, while Ethan repaired a circuit, Lyra dozed off beside him. In her sleep, she dreamed of lights, strange lights that shimmered and danced like living creatures. She reached for them, but they vanished the moment she touched them. When she woke, Ethan was sitting near the door, staring at the gray horizon. "Bad dream?" he asked. Lyra nodded slowly. "I dreamed of something bright." "Maybe that's what colors look like." Ethan turned to her. "Maybe your heart already knows them." She didn't understand what he meant, but his words stayed with her. The following week, their peace shattered. A patrol of Illyrian guards arrived in the valley, searching for the crashed human. Their boots stomped through the mud, gray armor shining under the dim sun. Lyra hid Ethan under the barn floor, covering the entrance with hay. The captain, tall and cold-eyed, approached her house. "Have you seen the outsider?" he demanded. Lyra's hands shook. "No, Captain. I only heard about the crash." He stared into her eyes long and hard and before finally turning away. "If you see him, report it. Humans bring disease and lies." When the patrol left, Lyra ran back to the barn. Ethan was still there, breathing quietly, his body trembling from the close call. "They almost found you," she whispered. He looked up at her and smiled weakly. "You saved me again." Lyra shook her head. "You can't stay here forever. If they find you, they'll kill you. Maybe I should destroy the machine and hide you somewhere far away." Ethan touched her hand gently. "No, we finished this. You deserve to see what's real." Her voice cracked. "But why does it matter so much to you?" He looked down at the small frame, the glasses resting on his lap. "Because I want you to see the world I believe in, the one where beauty exists, even if no one else believes it." For the next few days, Lyra noticed Ethan's health worsening. His breathing grew shallow, his movements slow. Still, he kept working. She begged him to rest, but he only smiled. "Almost done," he'd whisper. "Just a little more." Late one night, lightning flashed outside the barn. The wind howled and rain struck the roof like stones. Inside, Ethan's device finally came alive. Faint sparks and pulses of soft energy. Lyra could feel the hum, though she could not see the light. He looked at her, exhaustion in his eyes. "It's ready. At least I hope so." Lyra touched the glasses gently, afraid they might break. "Will they hurt me?" He laughed weakly. "Maybe a little, but some things are worth the pain." As thunder roared across the valley, Ethan leaned back against the wall. His eyelids fluttered. "Tomorrow," he murmured. "Tomorrow you'll see colors." Lyra sat beside him in silence, watching his chest rise and fall. The storm outside painted their world in shadows. But inside that small barn there was something new. Not light yet, but the promise of it. She didn't sleep that night. She just watched over him, clutching the half-finished glasses in her hands, whispering quietly to herself, "Tomorrow, I'll see the world through your eyes." And far beyond the clouds in the colorless sky, a single invisible beam of light broke through, unseen by her eyes, but felt by her heart. The night had been long. Rain whispered against the barn roof, and the air smelled of metal and earth. By dawn the storm had passed, leaving a soft silence behind, the kind that comes before something important. Lyra sat near Ethan, holding the strange glasses he had built. They were delicate, shaped from fragments of human metal and crystal lenses glowing faintly. She couldn't see the light, but she could feel the warmth in her palms. Ethan stirred awake, his voice weak but calm. "You didn't sleep," he said softly. Lyra shook her head. "I didn't want to miss the sunrise." He smiled faintly. "Then it's time." Her heart started to pound. She had waited for this moment, feared it, dreamed it, imagined what it might feel like. Now it was real. The invention that could change everything was in her hands. Ethan slowly lifted himself to sit up, wincing at the pain in his leg. "The lens will send signals to your brain," he explained. "You'll see what humans see, colors, light, warmth, maybe even emotions." Lyra hesitated. "What if my people are not meant to see it?" He met her gaze. "Then maybe you're meant to be the first." Her hands trembled as she placed the glasses on her face. They were cold at first, then warm, alive, humming like a heartbeat. For a moment everything went dark, then light. It started as a flicker, a shimmer across the edge of her vision. She gasped and blinked. The barn around her was no longer gray. It was alive. The wooden walls had soft golden tones, and the broken tools shimmered in dull reds and browns. She looked at her hands, pale blue veins beneath faint silver skin. Her breath caught in her throat. "Ethan," she whispered, tears forming. "What is this?" He smiled weakly. "That's color, Lyra." Her heart thudded faster. She turned her head slowly, seeing everything for the first time. The green vines climbing the wall, the soft yellow light streaming through a crack in the roof, the faint blue glow from Ethan's device. Each color felt like music, silent but deep. Wrapping around her soul, Lyra stepped outside the barn. The ground was wet from the rain, and as sunlight broke through the clouds, the world transformed. The dull land exploded into hues she didn't know existed. The green of the moss, the blue of the sky, the golden light reflecting on the puddles. She fell to her knees, crying silently. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan limped to the door, watching her with quiet pride. "That's how I see it," he said softly. "Now it's yours too." Lyra turned toward him, her eyes wide and shining. "All this time, I lived in a dead world, but this image feels alive. I feel alive." Her tears sparkled as they fell onto the soil, reflecting the morning light. Ethan watched in silence. To him, that sight, the first alien seeing color, was worth every wound, every risk. Hours passed as Lyra explored every corner of the valley. She touched flowers, rocks, water, everything she could find. Every discovery made her laugh and cry all at once. She turned to Ethan with trembling joy. "The sky, it's endless. It changes when I move." He laughed softly, voice weak but full of warmth. "That's blue. It's the color of peace." She picked a wildflower and held it up. "And this?" "Yellow," he replied. "The color of hope." Lyra clutched the flower to her chest, her voice trembling. "Hope." Then her laughter faded. A shadow crossed her face. "My people, they will never believe this." Ethan nodded slowly. "Maybe they don't have to. Maybe they'll see it through you. Lyra shook her head, afraid. If they find out, they'll destroy the glasses. They'll say I'm cursed. He looked at her gently. Then hide it. Protect it. The first time humans saw fire, they feared it too. But one day it lit their world. That evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, the sky changed color again, from bright gold to deep orange, then soft red. Lyra stood beside Ethan, watching in silent awe. Her voice was barely a whisper. What do you call this? He smiled. Sunset. She swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears again. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. For a moment, neither spoke. The world glowed around them, a painting made of every feeling they had ever known. Then Ethan coughed, a harsh, painful sound. Lyra turned quickly. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. Ethan! She cried, rushing to him. He waved weakly. It's okay. Just tired. Radiation from the crash still hurts. Lyra knelt beside him. You can't die. Not now. You showed me life. I can't lose you, he smiled faintly, his voice low. You won't lose me. Every time you see color, I'll be there. Lyra's tears fell again, but this time they weren't gray. The glasses shimmered, reflecting tiny rainbows through her tears. Ethan lifted a trembling hand, brushing one tear from her cheek. That's the color of your soul, he whispered. She leaned her forehead against his. Then you gave it to me. As night fell, Lyra sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Stars began to appear, tiny points of silver light. For the first time, she saw their faint glow against the deep blue of the universe. Ethan drifted into sleep, and Lyra stayed awake, holding his hand. The world was no longer gray. It was filled with light, color, and meaning. She looked up and whispered to the sky, I will protect this gift, and the one who gave it. And somewhere among the stars, the universe seemed to listen. The first human and the first Illyrian connected not by blood or race, but by the shared miracle of color. For the first time in the history of Lyra, the dawn was no longer gray. Lyra stood at the edge of the field, her feet in the soft mud, watching the horizon burn with colors she didn't yet know how to name. The golden light touched her face, and it felt warm, like the first heartbeat of something new. Behind her, the barn door creaked open. Ethan leaned against the frame, pale and weak, but his eyes still shone with life. Beautiful, isn't it? He said softly. Lyra turned, her eyes bright behind the shimmering lenses. It's more than beautiful, she whispered. It's alive, Ethan smiled. Then you understand what humans fight for. She nodded slowly, still lost in wonder. Now I do. But wonder could not hide danger. In the distance, the faint sound of engines echoed across the valley, harsh, metallic, and angry. Lyra froze, her breath quickened. The patrols. Ethan's hand tightened around the doorframe. They've found us. She could see their silhouettes on the horizon, black armored figures moving in formation. Her people, her own kind. They were coming for the human. Lyra's heart pounded. You have to hide, she whispered. Ethan tried to stand, but his leg gave way. Go, he said. If they find you with me, they'll... She shook her head fiercely. No, you showed me life. I won't let them take that away. Within minutes, the soldiers reached the barn. Their leader, Captain Nereth, stepped forward, tall, sharp, his eyes cold and lifeless like the world he protected. Lyra, he said sternly. Step aside. Her throat felt dry. He's not what you think. He's not dangerous. Nereth's gaze narrowed. He is human. That is enough. The other soldiers raised their rifles, silver barrels glowing faintly. Ethan limped forward, placing himself between them and Lyra. Don't hurt her, he said weakly. Nereth's voice cut through the air. Silence, invader! He motioned toward Lyra's face. And you, and what are those things you wear? Lyra froze. She could feel their eyes on her, studying the glowing edges of the glasses. Ethan tried to speak, but Nereth's hand moved faster. He ripped the glasses from Lyra's face and threw them to the ground. They shattered. No! Lyra screamed, dropping to her knees. The world went dull again, the colors fading like dying stars. Tears filled her eyes. Everything turned gray, lifeless, empty once more. But her heart still burned. You destroyed it, she whispered. You destroyed the light. Nereth's face twisted in disgust. Light? There is no light. Only order. You let this creature corrupt you with human lies. He turned to his soldiers. Take the human. End it quickly. Lyra's tears fell, but But something strange happened. The tears glowed faintly, tiny sparks of color bleeding into the earth where they landed. The soldiers hesitated, staring. Ethan saw it too. "Lyra, your tears," he whispered. "They're glowing." She looked down and gasped. Each tear shimmered like liquid rainbow, spreading across the floor. Wherever they touched, the color bloomed, gold, blue, violet, growing like fire. The soldiers stepped back, frightened. "What sorcery is this?" one shouted. Lyra rose slowly, her face streaked with shining tears. "It's not sorcery," she said softly. "It's truth." Nareth aimed his weapon at her. Enough. But before he could fire, the ground trembled. The color spreading from Lyra's tears moved faster now, racing across the soil, up the barn walls, into the air. The gray world around them cracked open with light. For the first time in history, Lyra saw the sun as it truly was, burning gold and alive. The soldiers fell to their knees, shielding their eyes. They had never seen brightness before. It hurt, and it amazed. Lyra turned to Ethan, who was watching through fading breath, awe in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. She shook her head, kneeling beside him. "We did it." His smile was faint, almost invisible. "Don't stop now." The air shimmered with colors, and from far away villagers began to gather, drawn by the strange glow. Murmurs of fear and wonder filled the wind. Children pointed, elders prayed. "She cries, and the world changes," one whispered. Lyra stood tall, her glowing tears streaking her face. "You said humans destroy," she called to her people. "But he built, he gave. He showed me beauty we never knew existed. He showed me life." The crowd stayed silent, watching her. Captain Nareth raised his weapon again. "Stop this madness!" he shouted. "The light will blind us all." Lyra turned, her eyes fierce and wet. "No," she said. "It will finally let us see." And as she spoke, the last fragments of Ethan's invention, the broken lenses, glowed again on the ground. The shards floated upward, drawn by the light in her tears, and slowly reformed into a single beam that shone into the clouds. The sky exploded in color, red, orange, pink, blue, painting the heavens in beauty no Illyrian had ever imagined. Everyone fell silent. Even Nareth lowered his weapon, staring at the spectacle with trembling hands. Ethan, lying weakly on the floor, looked at Lyra one last time. "You kept the promise," he whispered. Lyra caught his hand and pressed it to her heart. "And I always will." When the light finally faded, Ethan's breathing slowed. Lyra held him close, tears still glowing. The soldiers backed away in silence. No one dared touch them. The once gray land around them shimmered softly, alive with color. As the sun rose higher, Lyra whispered to the wind, "This is what kindness creates." Her tears fell one last time, glowing like stars, and the valley remembered. That day, color returned to Lyra, and it all began with a human, a promise, and the tears of an alien girl who refused to let the light die. The valley still shimmered faintly from the light of Lyra's tears, but the peace did not last. The color that had awakened the land also awakened fear. By dusk, word of the blinding curse had spread across the nearby settlements. The elders of Lyra sent warnings. The girl had betrayed her kind, consorted with a human, and unleashed forbidden light. Lyra and Ethan had no choice but to flee. Ethan was growing weaker by the hour, his steps heavy, his skin pale and cold. The radiation from the crash was spreading through his body, yet his eyes, those human eyes full of living color, still held a spark of determination. "We need to reach the observatory," he said, his voice rough. "If I can send a signal, the rescue ship will find us." Lyra adjusted his arm over her shoulder and helped him walk. "Then we go," she said quietly, "even if the whole planet stands against us." The two figures, one human, one alien, walked through the silent gray hills now streaked with faint hues of color. Behind them, smoke rose from the villages. The patrols were coming again. Night fell. The wind screamed through the canyons, carrying dust and static. In the distance, lightning split the clouds into glowing veins. Lyra built a small fire inside a cave. Ethan lay beside it, breathing shallowly. She placed her hand over his forehead. His skin burned with fever. "Rest," she whispered. He opened his eyes weakly. "No time, they'll track the signal trail," she frowned. "Then I'll carry you." He tried to protest, but she didn't let him speak. Her hand slipped under his arms, lifting him carefully. For such a small creature, she was strong, driven by something deeper than muscle. They left the cave and moved into the storm. Rain hit like shards of glass, cold and sharp. The wind howled through the ravines, and the lightning painted the sky with flashes of white and blue. The colors she now understood. Every flash reminded her of him, of the promise he had made, and the world he showed her. Hours passed. The mountain road grew steeper. The observatory stood far ahead, a broken spire of glass and metal atop a cliff, abandoned long ago after her people gave up studying the stars. Ethan coughed violently. His voice was barely a whisper. "Lyra, you need to go alone." She shook her head. "No, you can still save the colors," he said. "You don't need me to finish that." Lyra's grip tightened around him. "You're wrong. You are the color." He looked at her then, really looked. And for a moment, despite the pain, he smiled. "You sound human," she smiled faintly. "Maybe I learned from one." The storm grew stronger. Electric blue lightning arced across the horizon, striking the ground near them. The air crackled. Each flash reflected in Lyra's glowing eyes, casting her face in soft rainbow light. She pressed forward, step by step, her feet sinking into the mud, her arms trembling under Ethan's weight. Behind them, the sound of engines roared again, the Illyrian patrol ships. Searchlights cut through the darkness, sweeping across the valley like spears of white. Lyra's heart raced. She had to move faster. The cliff path grew narrow and slippery. One wrong step could send them both into the abyss. She didn't care. She kept going. Then, a blinding flash. The path ahead collapsed with a thunderous crack. Rocks tumbled down the slope. Lyra stumbled, clutching Ethan tighter. "Lyra!" he gasped. Her feet slid toward the edge. In a desperate motion, she threw herself forward, landing hard on the wet stone just as the ledge behind her crumbled into the darkness. They were safe, but barely. When the wind finally calmed, she looked up. The observatory stood only a short distance away, glowing faintly in the lightning's light. But Ethan was fading fast. His lips were pale, his breathing slow. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling. "No," she whispered. "Stay with me." He opened his eyes with effort. "The signal uplink. You'll find it inside. Plug the beacon into the terminal. It'll call my people." Lyra shook her head, tears mixing with the rain. "I don't want your people." "I want you," he smiled weakly. "Then promise me one thing." Her voice cracked. "Anything. Don't let the light die again." The words hit her like thunder. She looked toward the observatory, a broken tower surrounded by metal debris and rusted machines. The path was dangerous, but she carried him again, step by step, into the ruin. Inside, the air smelled of old metal and rain. She found the ancient control terminal and placed the glowing beacon, Ethan's final device, into the center port. It flickered, then came alive with soft blue light. Ethan's eyes widened. "It's working." Lyra turned to him, her tears glowing faintly. "We did it," he smiled, his voice almost gone. "Now they'll come." "You'll be safe," she shook her head. "Not without you." He reached up, his hand trembling, and placed it gently on her cheek. "You already carry me. In every color you see." Lyra's heart broke. She leaned close, pressing her forehead against his. "Don't leave me in the dark again." Ethan's eyes closed. "You'll never be in the dark, Lyra. Not anymore." And then he went still. For a long time there was only silence, the hum of the beacon and the quiet sound of her tears falling onto his chest. Each tear glowed, spreading across his body, painting him in soft light. Outside, the storm began to fade. The clouds parted, revealing the sky, vast and full of color. Lyra looked up, her voice a whisper in the wind. "The light won't die." She carried him to the observatory's open roof. There, under the storm's fading glow, she looked at the horizon one last time. The sky was no longer gray. It was alive, filled with the same colors he had promised her. She lifted her face to the wind, tears falling like tiny stars. "You kept your promise, Ethan," she whispered. "Now I'll keep mine." The world was silent when morning came. The storm had passed, leaving the land wet and shining under the dim, color-streaked sky. Clouds drifted slowly, carrying the scent of rain and metal. Lyra sat beside Ethan's still body on the observatory floor. His face was peaceful, as if he had only fallen asleep. The faint blue light from the beacon glowed beside him, pulsing like a quiet heartbeat. Her eyes were red from crying. But her tears were no longer gray. They shimmered with soft colors reflecting the dawn light. She whispered, her voice breaking, "You promised to show me the world, but you became my world instead." The words echoed in the hollow chamber. No answer came. Only the soft hum of the beacon filled the silence. Lyra brushed his hair back gently, her hands trembling. "You said humans see beauty in everything, even endings," she whispered. "Then tell me, and is this beautiful too?" She wanted to stay there forever. But his last words haunted her. "Don't let the light die again." With heavy steps, she rose and walked toward the beacon. The device pulsed brighter as she approached, responding to the faint energy in her glowing tears. On the terminal screen, strange human symbols blinked to life, unreadable to her eyes, but filled with purpose. A low hum grew into a deep vibration. The machine spoke in Ethan's voice, recorded before his death. "If anyone hears this, my name is Ethan Ward of Earth's Exploratory Division. This planet, Elira, is not dead. It was only sleeping. Tell them. Tell them the light has returned." Lyra covered her mouth, tears falling again. His voice, warm, calm, human, filled the room one last time. "And if you find her, tell her she was the first to see beauty twice, once with her eyes and once with her heart." The transmission ended. The beacon glowed one final time before shooting a beam of light into the sky, a radiant column that pierced the clouds and reached for the stars. Lyra stepped outside onto the observatory's balcony. The wind hit her face, carrying the scent of rain and life. The beam stretched high above, breaking the clouds apart. And then she saw it. The sun rose. Not gray, not dull, but blazing gold, bleeding into crimson and pink, spilling warmth across the entire sky. The first true sunrise in Illyrian history. Lyra gasped and covered her mouth. The colors spread like fire across the horizon. Orange spilling into blue, purple melting into gold. The world around her awakened as if taking its first breath. Her tears fell again, but this time she smiled through them. This is what you wanted me to see." She held the broken glasses close to her heart. The lenses were cracked, but still glowed faintly with his work. Through them, she looked at the sky, and the world transformed even more. Each cloud shimmered. Each drop of dew sparkled like tiny stars. The mountains far away gleamed in colors she didn't have names for. It was as if the universe itself bowed in silence, in respect, for the human who had brought color to a blind world. Behind her, footsteps echoed. Lyra turned sharply, ready to defend herself. But it wasn't soldiers. It was her people. A group of Illyrians had climbed the mountain following the glowing beam. Their gray eyes widened at the sight of the new sky. They fell to their knees, whispering prayers, fear, awe, disbelief. An elder stepped forward, his voice trembling. What is this?" Lyra looked at him, her face glowing in the dawn. "This is truth. The light was never forbidden, and it was forgotten." He stared at the sky. "And the human?" Lyra looked down, her voice breaking softly. "He gave us this." The elder's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in his long life. He looked at her glowing tears, then at the horizon. "Then we have wronged you." Lyra said nothing. She just turned to face the sunrise again. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and with every passing minute, the color spread farther. Valleys turned green. Rivers reflected blue. The gray flowers of Elira opened for the first time, showing brilliant crimson hearts inside. Children laughed, chasing butterflies that had never been seen before. The elders bowed in silence as the planet began to bloom. Lyra returned to Ethan's side and sat beside him again. She placed a single newly opened flower on his chest, bright yellow, the color of hope he once told her about. She whispered, "Do you see it, Ethan? The world you dreamed of. It's here." The beacon above them pulsed one last time, its light bathing them both. Lyra looked up. The clouds formed strange shapes, and for a moment she could swear she saw a human silhouette among them, smiling down at her. She closed her eyes, whispering softly, "Thank you for teaching me how to see." By evening, the entire sky had changed. Elira was no longer a gray world. It was alive, painted with light and color that would never fade again. Lyra stood at the edge of the observatory, wind flowing through her silver hair. She looked at the glowing horizon, pink fading into orange, and smiled through quiet tears. "Your light won't die," she whispered. "Not while I'm still here." Her shadow stretched long across the golden field, and somewhere far above the clouds, a faint glimmer, a human ship, streaked across the heavens following the beacon's trail. Lyra looked up at it and smiled. "Come home," she whispered. "He'll be waiting." That night, as the stars returned, the sky of Elira shimmered in soft hues of blue and gold, a living monument to one human's promise and one alien. Girls' tears, they called it the awakening, but Lyra called it something else, the last color, because it wasn't just the color of the sky or the sun. It was the color of love, the one that never fades. Weeks passed since the first sunrise, and the world of Elira was no longer silent. The gray valleys that once looked lifeless now shimmered with color. The rivers glittered like mirrors, and flowers the Illyrians had never seen before grew from the cracks in the soil. For the first time in history, their children laughed while chasing glowing insects under a golden sky. But while the planet rejoiced, Lyra still carried the weight of one man's absence. Every morning, she returned to the observatory where Ethan rested beneath a simple stone marked with human symbols, letters she could not read but knew by heart. She knelt beside it, whispering softly, "Your world and mine. They're one now. You did it, Ethan." She always left a yellow flower, the color of hope, on his grave. One morning, a sound broke the silence of the mountain. A deep, low hum vibrated through the air. The clouds above the horizon glowed with light, not the light of dawn, but something different, sharper, familiar. Lyra rose to her feet, eyes wide. The beam from the beacon, Ethan's last signal, had finally been answered. High above, breaking through the clouds, came the shape of a ship, sleek, silver, alive with blue thrusters. It cut through the sky like a falling star, scattering dust and color in its wake. The humans had returned. Villagers across the valley stopped what they were doing and looked up in awe. Some bowed, others fled in fear. The stories of the Lightbringers had become legend in just a few weeks, half myth, half miracle. Lyra stood still, wind whipping her cloak, her heart pounding. "They came for him," she whispered, just like he said they would. The human ship landed near the observatory. A door hissed open and a team stepped out, humans in silver suits marked with blue insignias. Their faces were hidden behind clear helmets, but their eyes, full of life and color, reminded Lyra of Ethan. One of them approached slowly, holding a device. His voice came through a translator. "We received the signal." "Who are you?" Lyra stepped forward. "My name is Lyra. I was his friend." The man paused. "His?" She pointed to the stone. "Ethan Ward." For a moment, none of the humans spoke. The wind carried only the hum of the ship and the rustle of the new flowers growing around them. Then, one woman, tall, her face streaked with tears inside her visor, knelt beside the grave. "He was my brother," she whispered. Lyra's breath caught. "Your brother?" The woman nodded. "He was reported missing 6 months ago. We never stopped looking." Lyra felt her throat tighten. "He found something here. He found me. He showed me colors." The woman looked up, eyes wet. "That sounds like him." The humans studied the land, the flowers, the air. Their instruments blinked wildly. Signs of new life, radiation gone, oxygen balanced. The planet was healing. A male scientist looked at Lyra in disbelief. "You say this world was once gray?" She nodded. "Everything. No color, no beauty, only silence. Then he came, and the world changed." The woman looked up at the sky, painted orange and gold, and smiled sadly. "Then he didn't just survive. He gave this world a soul." Lyra turned toward the horizon, the wind brushing through her silver hair. "He said kindness could build worlds. He was right. The next few days changed everything. The humans helped the Illyrians understand the science behind the light, how the glasses worked, how color could be perceived, and how Ethan's beacon had purified the planet's atmosphere. In return, the Illyrians showed them how they lived, how they had once feared the stars, and how a single act of compassion had rewritten their beliefs. Soon humans and Illyrians stood side by side, planting new seeds together, symbols of peace and memory. At the summit of the observatory, a new structure was built, a tall tower of glass and light. At its peak, a crystal lens rotated slowly, catching the sunlight and scattering it across the valley in rainbows. The elders called it the Bridge of Dawn, but Lyra called it something else. Ethan's Light. On the day the tower was completed, the entire valley gathered. Humans and Illyrians stood together, their faces bright with color. Lyra stepped forward, wearing the repaired version of the glasses Ethan had made. The lenses gleamed, reflecting the sky in shades of blue and gold. She spoke softly, her voice carried by the wind. He came here as a stranger, but he became our dawn. He showed me that light is not something we see with eyes. It's something we carry inside. The crowd listened in silence as the tower lit up, scattering color into the sky. Ethan's light will never fade, she continued, because it doesn't belong to one world. It belongs to all who choose to see beauty where others see darkness. The tower's lens caught the sun, and a beam of radiant color shot into the sky, the same beam that had once called for help. It rose higher and higher until it touched the clouds and spread across the horizon, painting the heavens once again. The humans stood in awe. The Illyrians wept. Lyra looked up at the beam, whispering, "You kept your promise. I kept mine." That night, under a starlit sky of endless color, Lyra sat by the tower's edge, watching as the two moons reflected off the rivers below. The air was soft, warm, alive. She closed her eyes and smiled faintly. In the wind, she could almost hear his voice again, calm, gentle, human. "Now you see what I saw in you." Lyra opened her eyes, and the stars above shimmered brighter, as if the sky itself remembered him. From that day forward, the people of Illyra taught their children about Ethan's light, not just as a story, but as a truth. A story of a human who gave sight to a blind world, and an alien girl who taught the stars to remember his name.